I've got here the ZMR X210 frame from FPV Model, the same company that makes the F303 flight controller that I like so much. And we'll go ahead and do a little unboxing here. Oh, yeah, that was very convenient, wasn't it? So I've built this out. You can see the build's not quite done. I still got to put the video transmitter and the antenna on, but it's basically built out. And I've got a separate build video that I'm going to edit down, but I thought I would just do a review for people who don't want to hear my sort of in-the-moment impressions while I'm doing the build. And overall, my impressions are very positive of this frame. It's very clear where this frame takes its design influences from, right? This is the QAV-R, and if you look, you can see that the arm design is very similar, the way that the forearms go together, and so on. The way that there's these metal brackets, it's all very similar. So let's look at some of the ways that these frames stack up. Okay, 4mm arms on both, same 4mm arms, same sort of modular arm design that allows changing the arms without having to get into the body of the copter. There are brackets inside the body that are held in place when you go to change the arms, so you just take out the screws. You will notice that the FPV model version has a sandwiched bottom plate on the arms, right? Whereas the QAV does not. And in fact, people were breaking their bottom plates on the QAV, and so after the fact, Luminaire modified the bottom plate to not have a cutout here, and they will sell you an X-shaped plate here to reinforce the bottom if you so like. This one comes with an extra bottom plate. So actually, I really like this a lot. This plate weighs about 18 grams, and if you want to save yourself 18 grams of weight, you just leave it off. And it comes with 2 sets of screws that are the right length for if you are or are not using the plate. And so if you want to save 18 grams and you think that this bottom plate is strong enough all by itself, then you just leave this and you got a spare bottom plate for free. Fantastic. Whereas if you think you need a little more strength, you sandwich the bottom plate like this, and then you have the extra strength that you want, and you don't have to buy a second bottom plate like you would with a Luminaire. So I think that's really cool. I'm really psyched about that. The dimensions of the copters are very similar. In fact, the bottom plates are essentially identical, the same width, and you can see that the FPV model copter is about an inch longer, a little, maybe 3 centimeters longer. So this is more on par with the size of the QAV-R XL, which you may recall I broke and didn't really think very much of the way it was designed. But hang on. Number one, you got the 2 bottom plates here, which is extra strength, so that's good. And number 2, look where the standoff, the vertical standoff is here. Now, I don't have the QAV-R XL here to show you, but on the QAV-R XL, the front end was simply moved forward like this, so there was this length of carbon fiber here to crack and break. But here, you have the same relationship of this standoff being right up against the legs, so the stiff, boxed-in, strong front end transitions directly into the stiff, strong leg assembly. So this is essentially, you get the benefit of the QAV-R XL in that you can easily fit an 1800 battery on top of here while still having a GoPro, but you don't have the downside. I would say without hesitation that I would buy this frame over a QAV-R XL. If I was thinking about the QAV-R, the QAV-R is a little more compact, and and it doesn't have the design defect of the QAV-R XL. So you might say, okay, but for me, the QAV-R XL isn't even really in the competition compared to this frame, because this frame you get the size advantage that it brings that the RXL brings to the table, but you don't get this what I consider to be a design flaw on the QAV-R XL. The FPV model frame does it right. It gives you the longer top plate and the longer frame that you want if you're going to run the bigger batteries, or even if you're going to run the smaller batteries. So I gotta tell you, sometimes this copter feels a little bit cramped. I'm slamming the battery up here, and the GoPro or the Yi camera is getting shoved on, and it's hard to make it all fit. Sometimes I might like a little more breathing room. The camera mount on this. So let me tell you a few things I didn't like. The camera mount on this is it's got a lot of play in there. The hole is not the exact right size to fit the stud, if you will, on the 1177 camera, and so it's got a little play. And this is with the screws as tight as they go. This is just how it fits together, right? And it's possible that when I up tilt the camera and I strap it to the top plate as I like to do, that won't matter. This is Joshua from the future here. I have since flown this frame, and with the camera braced against the top plate to hold its angle, I had no issues with vibration. So it would be nice if this was fit up a little better, but it doesn't seem to be an issue, practically speaking, as long as you secure the cameras, which you really should be doing anyway. So I wish those were a little better fit. You can see here that we've got these two holes fore and aft right here, but they're not actually big enough to fit the stud on the 1177. In fact, I'm not sure what they're for. They're too small to fit the screw, and they're not big enough to fit the stud on the 1177, so they're decorative as far as I can tell. You could potentially use them as pilot holes to Dremel out your own hole and move the camera forward and backwards. But that's one thing that I would like to see changed on this frame in the future if I had my wishes. Is I like the fact that on the QAV you can move the camera forward or back, and that lets you adjust for a different size of camera and different lens. But also you can see that what I like to do is push the camera up so it touches the top plate, and then put like a zip tie around it, like a belt kind of, to hold it in place. And that keeps it, when I land, it doesn't fall down, right? It keeps it in place, and it keeps the angle exactly consistent. The angle is not sort of creeping or drifting a few degrees at a time. And really, even 5 degrees of camera angle is a difference you can feel. You adjust to it, but I like consistency. So if I want to change my camera angle on the QAV, I can move the camera back or forward, and you can see that will cause the angle to get shallower or steeper, which I think is a really, really clever thing they've done. And if FPV Model were to route out these holes, then you could potentially have more flexibility in how you mount your camera, and it seems like a good idea to me. So that's a suggestion I have for the future. I really like the way they've done the battery straps here, the battery strap cutouts. If we compare this to the QAV has 2 battery strap cutouts, one here. Oh, thank you so much. That's completely useless. Okay, so granted I'm running with a lot of up tilt, but like a lot of people run with up tilt, right? Okay, so I have like 45 degrees, which is a lot, but I just don't see how this battery strap cutout is really any use at all. So then we've got this battery strap cutout, which is still a little far forward, right? But it's usable. But especially if you have a little bit longer battery, it kind of hangs out the back. It can kind of wedge its way up. And then there's nothing here. There's no battery cutout back here. And it would be really super useful if there was. Why isn't there one? I don't know. Well, anyway, so I really like the decision that FPV Model have made here. They got one cutout up here at the front and one cutout here more towards the back. I think that this is the one I'm going to use. And you may think, well, gosh, the battery is really far back there. Don't you want your CG centered? You would be surprised how much weight there is up front on a copter, especially if you have a GoPro on the front. But even without a GoPro on the front, there's more weight up front than you think. And if you and what I like to do is I'll just take the copter and put it on the edge of a table, and I'll slowly move it forward until it starts to tip over the table, right? And then I will see where the balance point is. You would be surprised at how far back your battery can go in order to produce a centered CG. So this, I think, is just about right. I think they've really got this right here. They've got the same connection here. I use the zip tie here. I'll mount my video transmitter here so I can get at the dip switches through this little window, and then I'll just take a zip tie and I'll have the antenna coming out the back. This plate is here if you want to use a bulkhead connector. That's your call. The frame did come with a grommet for here. It comes with aluminum hardware, which I'm super impressed. I'm super impressed that it's got aluminum hardware. That is a step that the cheaper frames often don't bother to take, and it shows that the folks at FPV Model are definitely thinking. It also has aluminum screws, which I actually do not like. Well, then it's a good thing that it doesn't come with aluminum screws. I was wrong, and it comes with steel hardware. So we'll just skip this whole section of the review and forget I ever mentioned it. But the standoffs are aluminum, and the spacers are also aluminum, and I'm super impressed that the spacers are threaded. I expected them to just slip over, but they're threaded, so they screw down. which is nice because it just adds that extra little bit of rigidity and strength, and it's just a little thoughtful thing that they did that I appreciate. Another thing I noticed that I did not like, and this, if it's a one thing I would say that I would consider to be like defective, if you could use that word about the frame, it would be this. These holes, the relief holes for the motor shaft, are about, I think they're about 6 millimeters. Yeah, that's about 6.5 millimeters. And if you, I don't know if you can see this, it's a little hard to get the angle. Do you see how the C-clip on that motor is turning as I turn the motor? Oh, see, there's the problem right here. Do you see how I'm turning the motor, but the C-clip, there we go. The C-clip got stuck, didn't it? Now it's doing, oh, not that time. Okay, it happened once. But the C-clip on a motor is supposed to rotate with the motor. Okay? And if the C-clip does not rotate, it will rub against the shaft, and it will wear out, and it will come off, and then your motor bell will go flying, which is no fun. These holes are so small that depending on the style of C-clip you have, there's another style of C-clip that doesn't have these sticky outy little prongs, and they probably wouldn't have a problem. But the C-clip on these motors, you have to get the motor exactly centered in the hole, or the C-clip rubs against the edge of the hole. So I would strongly request that this hole be made a 0.5 millimeter or even a millimeter bigger. I measured the holes on my QAV-R just to make sure I wasn't like making some kind of an unreasonable request here. I'm just really crazy out of line. And on the QAV-R, they are 8 millimeters. And I don't know, I mean, that seems to be enough. There seems to be a combination of cutouts here that lets you mount a 2200 or an 1800 motor and still have a bigger hole here for more room for the C-clip to rotate. So that, I think, is my biggest concern here, because if that ends up happening, you will eventually lose a bell in flight, and that's a pretty big deal. And not many people would think of that. I mean, I'm not trying to claim I'm special. Bruce from RC Model Reviews was doing a review once of some motors where he pointed that out, and I never realized that the C-clip was supposed to rotate like that. I just never thought of it, and so now I always check that. There's one more thing that I have to address before I finish up this review, and that is the distance from the screw hole to the edge of the arm at the base of the motor, where the arm transitions from the arm into the motor. And you can see here that it's maybe 2 millimeters of carbon at most. And I was aware of this. I've watched enough, again, videos from RC Model Reviews that stress rises. It's one of the things Bruce loves to harp on, okay? And I started to harp on it in my review, and then I said, you know what? It's 4 millimeter carbon. It's probably fine, and I'm not going to pick on it just for the sake of finding something to pick on. And I didn't mention it when I originally made this video. But then people in the comments started saying that they had 4 millimeter arms, not this exact frame, but other ZMR arms with a similar design, and they had broken that exact location. So I have to mention it, and I have to say to FPV Model, if it's possible to reshape this arm to give a little more material there, make a more gradual transition or something, then I think that would be beneficial. Frankly, it would be beneficial if only from the perspective that whether it's an issue or not, people think it's an issue. And so it definitely is something that people are concerned about. I can't say whether it's an issue or not because at the end of the day, I haven't flown this frame enough to break the arms and to know. But when the arm breaks, that's probably where it's going to break. And it may break. I flew my Strider arms for 9 months before I broke the first one. And then I broke the other 3 in the next 2 weeks, which means they had slowly been wearing out, and finally they gave out. So if you fly this arm for 6 months and then eventually it breaks in that spot, you don't go, well, there's stress risers. See, who knew it was going to break there, right? But if you fly it on the first week and you crash it hard into some concrete and it breaks, then I think we could say that that's a defect that needs to be addressed. So yeah, this is a $52 frame, and I think if this is the style of frame you're looking to get, in other words, you want a frame with the detachable arms like this, I think this is a very, very strong contender. It has 4 millimeter arms. It's going to be a very strong frame. It has a good design in terms of the cutouts. It's a proven design because it's literally It's the cutouts are like almost identical there. Right, so you have the cutouts here to remove weight and to give you room to strap things to, but they went one better by giving you the bottom plate. Very nice. Comes with all the hardware you would want. Comes with a PDB. Very nice. Frankly, before I started putting the ROSD on copters, this is the PDB that was my favorite. It's got 12 volts, 5 volts. Very nice little PDB. I of course have put the ROSD on there because that's what I like to do, but it's a very nice PDB. That's a that's a $7, $5, $7 I think product right there all by itself. Aluminum hardware. I like it, and I feel confident recommending it. So how does it fly? Well, actually, this is what it flies like, and you can click through on this box up here if you want to see the whole test sample flight. But the bottom line is, it flies pretty much like all of the X Quads do. I really think that once you nail down a frame design like this X style, that there isn't too much variation due to the frame. It's more about weight distribution and aerodynamic drag. And for all of these frames, these are very, very similar. And I don't think you're going to see a huge amount of difference as long as you haven't screwed up the CG too much. So anyway, you can see the whole flight and if you want to, but the bottom line is it flies pretty good. So there you go. The ZMR X210 frame from FPV model. Now you've seen it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Happy flying.